Hello there, everyone. My name is Allie Virtue. I'm a functional medicine nutritionist and the host of the Pre-Diet podcast. I am very excited for this podcast today. If you have been listening for any amount of time, you know this podcast is all about teaching you the tools so you can truly become a healthier person, saving you a lot of time, frustration, in this kind of whole diet industry world that can be kind of a murky place. So we're going to cut through a lot of that confusion. And today is a fantastic episode. Is with Dr. Tiffany Garcia. She has her doctorate in clinical nutrition. I was incredibly excited to have her on the show. And I've been a fan for a while from afar via Instagram. We also have a very good mutual friend in common. So very excited for you to hear this episode. Dr. Tiffany, she has a doctorate in clinical nutrition and functional medicine with a deep-rooted passion for helping people heal through food, lifestyle, and movement. Right out of high school, she pursued a career in dietetics, realized it wasn't a great match for her, didn't align with her perspective, and she pivoted to studying exercise science and human biology, where she discovered her love for weightlifting and developed a deeper appreciation for how the body functions and adapts. After earning her bachelor's degree, she wanted more comprehensive and holistic understanding of nutrition, and that led her to pursue a master's at the National University of Natural Medicine, NUNM, in Portland, where she studied the therapeutic power of food, sustainable farming practices, and how to manage chronic conditions through nutrition and lifestyle. During this time, her nephew was diagnosed with Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, a moment that profoundly shaped her path and fueled her desire to go deeper, ultimately leading her into functional medicine. To her, functional medicine is a bridge between Western and naturopathic care. It recognizes that while conventional medicine has its place, our daily choices, what we eat, how we move, how we manage our stress, play a critical role in our long-term health. Her approach is rooted in empowering individuals with knowledge and tools to take control of their health in a sustainable, realistic way, because healing isn't about quick fixes, it's about understanding your body and working with it. This is exactly what you're going to get when you listen to this episode. I am so excited. Let's dive right in. Welcome to the show, Dr. Tiffany Garcia. I am so excited to have you on. I feel like I've been a secret fan for a while because my good friend Riley, we have a mutual friend in common, and she told me about you and followed you on Instagram, and I was like, oh wait, all her credentials are my dream credentials. And where you went to school, and I was like, oh my gosh, this feels like the perfect balance. She likes CrossFit, I like CrossFit. So super excited to just chat with you. So welcome to the Pre-Diet podcast.
Yeah, thank you for having me on. I know CrossFit is such a small community, so I know I've heard of you and your company, and things, especially being in that Oregon.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're in Texas now, right? Or
Yes, I
somewhere.
am in Texas. Yeah.
Okay. Did work bring you down there after school?
Kind of, sort of. It was more so the weather, I would say, because I'm 100% remote, so I could go anywhere. But I wanted more sunshine. As you know, Oregon, it gets very rainy, it gets
Yes.
very cloudy for a long time. So I just wanted to try something new, and I'm loving it so far. So it's a
Awesome.
nice balance. It gets hot, but I like the heat, so
That's good.
it's been
That's
nice.
good. I would melt instantly.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So cool. Well, I just went over your bio, but what else do people need to know? Obviously, very passionate about your education in nutrition, CrossFitter. What else do we need to know about you to really get a good sense of who Tiffany is?
Oh man, well, I've been in the health and wellness field for as long as I can remember, honestly. I started getting my interest in nutrition and diet and food back in high school, and then that kind of moved my trajectory into my career that I have now. And there's been obviously other points throughout my career that have pushed me to keep continuing education. But it really started, back when I was in high school and I was in sports and I wanted to learn about how to better fuel my body, how to feel more energized. And I became a vegan, and I was a vegan for 12 years. And I was
Wow.
100% thinking that I was going to die vegan. I was never going to eat meat again. And then I went to school for nutrition and dietetics. And in my master's program, actually, I was so surprised that I ended up deciding to eat meat again. And I thought everyone in my master's program was going to be a vegan. And so, to my surprise, when I showed up and no one else was a vegan, I was like, wait a minute, I thought this was the best way
What?
to eat. So, I had a lot of moral challenges as well too that I feel like help me relate to a lot of the population that I work with as well. So I've seen them two different major sides of the spectrum. Now I eat meat all the time. I love meat. I'm a huge advocate for meat. But I totally can see the other side as well too. So,
Mhm.
yeah, that was a big surprise for me in my master's, and it's also kind of when my own health started declining as well too, that made me realize that this diet that I held so much weight and had so much identity in wasn't working for me anymore. And then pushed me into where I am now, feeling better than I did back when I was in my early 20s. And then my oldest nephew got diagnosed with a condition called Duchenne's muscular dystrophy, and that really sparked my interest of wanting to go more into functional medicine. So that pursued past the master's into my doctoral program for clinical nutrition and functional medicine.
It's amazing. Can you describe just briefly, because there is so many routes with nutrition, that's one thing that makes it great, but makes it really confusing for people. Um, what was your path through nutrition? So was it going the RD route or LDN route and then into a doctoral program? What's the kind of brief path there?
Yeah, so I actually started in dietetics, so the traditional RD route, and I ended up hating it. And so I actually ended up transferring out and I went into exercise science and human biology. And so I was thinking that I was like, I must not like dietetics. Maybe I'll be a physical therapist or occupational therapist. And so I kind of started going towards that route. Got my bachelor's in exercise science and human biology. That's where I found CrossFit as well. So that really flourished that part of my love for health is fitness and strength training and being strong. And then after that, I started working in a outpatient as an exercise physiologist. So I started working in outpatient cardiac and pulmonary care. And I got to work in a hospital. It was wonderful. I loved that job. But then I still wanted to, I feel like I needed to learn more about helping my patients, about nutrition specifically. So that then made me go back to school for my master's. But I wanted to find a program that really had a naturopathic approach to it, or like a homeopathic approach to nutrition. I didn't want to learn the traditional dietetics where it's like, medications and feeding tubes and being in the hospital. I wanted to really understand about our food and our food systems. And then that's when I found my master's program, the Naturopathic Institute of Medicine in Portland, Oregon. That's exactly what it was. I toured the facility and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I've been looking for. It's all about, regenerative farming, learning about the foods, how they're grown, how our body, needs these different in-season foods and everything. We had a culinary component of it. And then we really got to dive in on how we can optimize that with Western medicine as well, too. So that is how I actually went and got my master's in nutrition versus doing the RD route.
It's amazing. So cool. So that was that a combined like master's and doctoral program at NUNM?
So no, my doctoral program was at the University of Western States. So
Oh, okay.
different. Yeah, but that
Okay.
one's also through functional medicine lens as well too. So it just so happened to be that it wasn't trying to go to school in Portland for so long, but it just so happened that the universities that I wanted to go to were in Portland, Oregon.
Hmm.
But yeah, and then I also got my certified nutrition specialist certification as well, which is very similar to an RD. You still have to do the 1,000 hours of internship. You have to do all that different qualifications to become a CNS. So I did go that route instead of doing like the traditional RD route as well.
So that's so helpful. Yeah, I went to University of Western States for their master's program, but I looked at NUNM as well. But Portland is a really good option for that type of education. There's a lot to pick from. So, very cool. Yeah, lots of
Yeah,
ways for anybody listening that's interested in nutrition. Lots of different routes for sure, which is always reassuring because I didn't want to work in a hospital, so that's where I went the functional medicine route just to be a little bit more like private practice, proactive chronic disease prevention route. But that's amazing. Let's see. Where I didn't know that you were vegan for so long. 12 years is a long time. That is a real solid
yeah.
identity to like shift. What were the first like planting of seeds of like maybe I should consider something else? So you got fully into grad school. That's quite a ways into that journey to really change things.
Yeah, so CrossFit, honestly, it was a lot of my motivation is I wanted to get strong, I wanted to live heavy, and I wasn't recovering from exercise very well. I had very low energy. And I just felt like for how much effort I was putting into my lifts just weren't, I wasn't putting on any weights, I wasn't PRing, I wasn't recovering from it. I'd be sore for like a week straight. And I just didn't understand. And when you're vegan, it's hard to meet those protein requirements without getting too much extra calories as well too, because plant-based are mostly carbohydrates or fat-based. So it's really hard to meet my protein recommendations just based off of vegan sources without having to supplement a lot. And I really wanted to try to do everything as whole food based as possible. But then on top of that too, I started getting this debilitating, crushing fatigue where during being in school full time, trying to train full time with CrossFit, be competitive, and then also work full time, I needed energy and I was relying so much on caffeine and just car naps as well. I remember like I would run out to my car in between classes and take like a 15-minute nap, and then I would drink coffee all day, and I was getting burnt out. And I started working in their medical clinic at my master's, and we were doing a lot of lab testings, and they're like, you're chronically low in all of these vitamins and minerals. And I was supplementing. I was doing all the things that a vegan should do to prevent that, and nothing was budging. And we did a lot of, one of my professors that I'm so grateful for her, we did a lot of different trials of me trying to be on different supplements to see if I can get some markers to improve, and they weren't budging. And then she finally was like, hey, would you be open to eat some eggs? And I was like, I guess I'll try to eat some eggs. I mean, like I every once in a while would have like maybe some dairy. So I was like, I can do some eggs. And I ate eggs for a couple of weeks, and I retested my B vitamins specifically, and my B vitamins shot up almost immediately. And even taking like the highest quality B vitamin supplement wasn't budging for me. So I was like, wow. And it wasn't until I could see that like in real time and see those labs that I was like, wait, maybe this diet isn't working for me anymore.
Yeah.
And then my thyroid ended up crashing, unfortunately. I got hypothyroidism in that process. And I think that had a lot to do with being, super stressed, undernourished, overtraining. So yeah, and then I started losing my hair. And once you start losing your hair, you're gonna do anything as a woman to get that hair.
Yeah, you're gonna make some changes.
Yeah, I was like, all right, we're eating the meat, we're doing it.
Wow, that's so interesting. But wow, it is amazing when you have those like kind of pivotal people in your journey to say like, hey, are you open to this? And I'm sure that helps you serve your clients as well that are really like, I really want to eat this way, whether it's for health reasons, ethical reasons, or whichever. I kind of love that as a part of the job, because a lot of people will come up to me and be like, oh, but I'm this, but I prefer this, or however their preferences lie. I'm like, the beautiful thing about food is there are a lot of redundancies in nature, so you can get it from other things. But the objectivity of having lab work to say, yes, but we tried this and it's still not working is pretty powerful.
Yeah.
How do you work with those clients?
Yeah, I mean, there's like when it comes to being a vegan, you have your ethical reasons, animal welfare, you have your health reasons, but then you also have like environmental reasons. So there's like three pillars that typically a patient or individual becomes a vegan. Me, I had all three of them. All three of them I was very passionate about. And it wasn't until I was with that professor that she challenged all three of those. She's like, okay, well, you're saying that you want to do it for the environment, but yet you're supplementing like crazy, like plastic's really bad for the environment. Like, how do you feel about that? And then she would say, okay, well, you're doing it for animal welfare. Well, how do you feel about monocropping and how detrimental it is to the birds, to the larvae, to all the other things in the ecosystem for monocropping? And she just kept challenging me over and over and over again. And I was like, wow, I never really thought about it like this. Like, there's that Yellowstone quote that's like, how big does the animal have to be until you care about if it dies, or something like that. But things like that really stuck with me. And so I tried to, whenever I approach with like patients or clients that they are just, so gung-ho attached to a diet or attached to a certain thing, if it's not working for you, you got to find out why. Why isn't it working for you? And then also find what their why is of why they chose this diet in the first place, or this protocol. And then see, okay, is there some flexible room as well too? Just like my professor did with me. Are you willing to at least eat eggs? I'm like, okay, I can do that. I can morally feel like I'm okay with eating an egg. And I do that a lot with my patients and my clients. Okay, where is our leeway here? And maybe it is that you're going to be a vegan and you want to supplement with protein powders and supplements, and that's what you want to do, and that's your fine line there. Then okay, we're going to optimize that the best that we can, and we're going to work with that. So it's just all about, but at the same time, when you start feeling good, it's hard to argue. So when I started, like my lifts started increasing, I was recovering better, I was getting stronger finally. It's hard to argue with that. So You have your vegans, but then you also have your carnivores, both very, very passionate
Yes.
about their diet and there's a lot of identity into it. So it can be a challenge.
So I think that's a great segue into one of my questions I wanted to ask is like how sometimes I'll ask like what are red flags, but also like what are green flags? What are signs that like a diet or way of eating, whatever we want to call it, is actually working really well for someone? Because I think that can help kind of break up that identity of like, I love that you love animals. I love animals, but also, yeah, I think I would probably feel the same way if I didn't have meat and didn't able to take advantage of those types of protein sources to fit my goals. But what are some of those signs that could maybe clue somebody into like maybe it's not as perfect as you might think, and maybe there's some room for improvement when it comes to their diet?
Yeah, I think we're all very disconnected from our food that we eat and how our body actually feels when we eat it. Whether you're eating whatever diet you're eating, people don't sit there and say, "Okay, how did I feel after I ate that?" or "How do I feel eating this?" And so really trying to connect them with how does your body feel? Okay, you're a carnivore, but you're super fatigued all the time. You're not feeling well. You're having all these symptoms. Well, maybe let's try something else and see how it makes you feel. And so a lot of times it's connecting that. How's your sleep? How's your stress? How's your digestion? How is your resilience to stress and things like that as well too? So going back to those other things that actually affect you in your life and how you're showing up for yourself, but also the people around you, but how's your body physiologically actually operating? Just connecting those, I think, is really important to do because we like to think that oh, what you eat is just what you eat and doesn't really matter. But it's like, no, okay, even if it was, eating something like, let's say, broccoli, like everyone says, okay, broccoli is good. But if you eat broccoli and broccoli makes you feel horrible, well, let's try something else. We don't have to eat broccoli. There's so many different vegetables that we can do.
So
And
many.
some people will do that. They'll have one vegetable like broccoli and it'll make them feel bad. So they'll cut out all the vegetables. I'm like, we have so many options. So yeah, just connecting them to how their body's feeling. I love doing food diary journals, especially if people are having symptoms, like having them write down how they feel throughout the day, their energy levels, and then just plain, hopefully they're open to, messing with some things. But yeah, just really connecting themselves to their food and how their body's feeling.
Absolutely. What would you say, like, if we're starting like very basic, maybe potentially taking a standard American, which we know could be quite an unhealthy way of living and eating? What are some of your basic like foundational principles as far as like habits or nutrition for people if they're just
Yeah.
getting started?
Yeah, I think, majority of the population would just benefit if they just cut back on processed foods. A lot of people processed food is a major consumption that we have here, especially in America. And just cutting that out in general, whether it's good or bad, is going to help them. So even if it's labeled high protein or high fiber, if it's processed, if we can just cut that out and you eat real food, you're most likely going to fix 9 out of 10 problems. And I've worked with thousands and thousands of patients and clients, and just having them cut back on processed food generally helps clear up a lot of their issues and makes them feel better. And I understand why we rely on processed foods. We live in a very fast-paced environment. A lot of people are not growing up eating foods that they're not cooking for themselves or having someone cook for them. And so they're relying on those quick foods and those processed foods. But yeah, if we can just get back to cooking real food, eating real food, we can fix a lot of stuff.
Absolutely. What are some of the or definitions or tiers of processed food? Because some people will say like, oh, I should be ordering, and this especially because you have to look at the person, right? As far as like, okay, I'm a single mom, I work two jobs. Like I heard frozen vegetables are too processed, or maybe they're not as healthy, or canned foods aren't as good. What is your kind of priority list of like, this is ultra processed down to like, this is minimal processing that like can still help somebody out that's trying to make an effort?
Yeah, I usually say try to prioritize single ingredient foods. So if there's one ingredient in it, you're good to go. It's a potato, it's rice, it's broccoli, it's meat, it's cheese, whatever. If it has one ingredient, we're good. If it has a couple ingredients and you understand the ingredients from it, okay, we're still probably doing pretty good. Upwards of 5 different ingredients in there. And that's where you get into things, that are a little bit more processed, maybe have a little bit of spices in them, things like that. But you can understand the products. You can understand the ingredients. The ingredients are also whole foods as well too. So it has things like rosemary, garlic in it. It doesn't have these weird long words that you don't really know if it's a whole food or not. And those are usually, I would say, good to go there. When we're starting to go into processed, like highly ultra processed foods, that's going to be where we're going to start having a laundry list of ingredients. We're going to have ingredients that we don't recognize. We're going to have those foods are going to be ultra processed. They're going to have a ton of added sodium in them. They're going to have added sugars in them. And they're going to be at that perfect, salt, sugar, fat combination and make them irresistible. So they typically come in bags, they come in packages, they can be in the frozen section. So I always just say, if you have a food that you love, try to just read the label and try to get as simple ingredients as possible. So for example, you love tortilla chips. Okay, instead of getting the tortilla chips that have 20 ingredients, maybe you can get ones that just have corn, salt, and that's pretty much it in the tortilla chip, because that's really all it takes. And same with buying things like people lean on those, keto tortillas or like those low carb tortillas. I'm like, look how many ingredients that is. A keto tortilla is 50 calories, which you're arguing with me is better than a corn tortilla that's 60 calories and has fiber in it and only has 3 ingredients. So just trying to get back to simple ingredients on the label is going to help as well too. So yeah.
Absolutely. How do you describe building a healthy plate for somebody? What's your kind of nutritional philosophy and or approach to just hey, this is what should be on your plate for someone who just is just getting started?
Yeah, I usually say protein and fiber. So try to find a good source of protein and then try to find a good source of fiber. Now, fiber can come from carbohydrates and fat sources. And so that's why I usually just say fiber, because that's going to make you search for different fiber sources from a variety of different options. So it can be a fat source like avocado, chia seeds, flax seeds, nuts and seeds. But then it also can be a carbohydrate source, beans, lentils, vegetables, fruits. If we're searching for fiber and we're searching for protein, we're going to be getting a variety of different vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals to balance that plate.
I feel like a lot of people will get kind of confused or distracted by the newest, shiniest thing versus what are your priorities as far as because things are expensive these days. Food is expensive. Yeah. I mean, my kind of list is always and there's lots of free resources for exercise, of course, but making sure someone has a gym membership, I feel starts the wheel in a positive direction, even though food is definitely my preferred toolbox. Gym membership, if someone has access to healthcare, is a big one. Regular blood work so they can guide their health recommendations. Protein and produce, like you said, are big ones for me. Supplement, stress management. And then I kind of get into hey, what's the quality of our meat? Is there a kind of a list of priorities that you kind of keep in mind for people when we're kind of helping people allocate their budgets to the tools that are going to help get them the most for their or improve their health the most?
Yeah, I think one of the issues is a lot of people think that they have to buy the organic, the grass-fed, the grass-finished, those type of things in order to be able to eat healthy. And when it comes down to those types of tiers of meats and other products, it makes such a minimal difference to the actual overall quality of the food versus you just eating the main components of the food. So if you can afford, just let's say some department store brand chicken, that is going to provide you so many nutrients just as much as the organic one. It's just such a fine line between if that's actually going to make a huge difference in your health outcomes. So same with produce, you can't afford the organic produce, don't buy the organic produce, just buy the regular produce. Let's just do that, because there's been so many studies that show even the difference between a grass-fed steak and a regular fed steak, it really doesn't make that big of a difference when it comes to the overall composition of it. That's going to make a huge difference in your overall health goals to deter you. Now, if you have the means to be able to support or to afford those things, then by all means, yes, go ahead and do that. But if you're going to get fiber from your non-organic vegetables, it's going to help you the same way as your organic vegetables are as well too. So I'd rather you get the fiber from the non-organic than any of the vegetables at all, because you can't afford them. So even when, I do a lot of times with my patients that are on a budget, is going to the frozen section. So especially when things are out of season, is you can find so much good produce in the frozen section. And the thing about the produce in the frozen section, it's also flash frozen. So a lot of them are frozen in peak season. So they're very nutrient dense. You just got to make sure that there's not a bunch of additives in it, which you can get, blueberries all year round that are just blueberries, and blueberries are great for you. So you don't have to pay $8 for a carton of blueberries, that aren't in season.
Absolutely. I think that's so helpful. And I'm probably prey to this in other industries or other areas of life of like, ooh, that's new. That looks fun. I should buy that
Mhm.
versus like, wait, am I skipping the basics? Like, did I get enough protein? Did I actually recover? Did I, make sure I hit my workouts or sleep is probably one of the most underrated things where people just don't optimize because we can sleep when we're dead. Well, you'll be dead
Yeah.
sooner.
Yeah, and people like to focus on it. You have to be gluten free or you have to be organic, but they're sleeping 4 hours a night and they're super stressed. So there's so many just basic things that are gonna make so much bigger of a difference versus if you spent, $14 on a chicken breast.
Absolutely. Yeah. Couldn't agree more with that. Making sure we got the wheels on the bus before we try to go faster.
Yeah, I actually got the privilege of being able to go meet with the Texas Beef Council, and we got to
Oh,
go to their
cool.
farm or their ranch, I guess you could say, speak with the owner of the Texas Beef Council, and he was actually showing us a lot about the differences between grass-fed, grass-finished beef, and then the beef that they raise. And there's such a small difference between the quality within their meats, and a lot of these companies, they have to pay a lot of money to get these labels. And so especially when you're dealing with local farmers and things like that, they just can't. It's not because they don't have good product, it's because it's cost them a lot to put this on their product. So then they're going to have to increase the price of how they sell it to you. So, I mean, growing up in a small farm town, I grew up with a family that they raise their own cattle, they raise their own produce. And I used to ask them, like, why don't you put organic on your label? And she's like, it's way too expensive to do that. And I would have to increase the pricing for our vendors because of that extra label that really doesn't make too much of a difference. And she's like, people trust us and trust that we make good products. So why are we going to invest in that thing? So there's a lot of different bureaucracy issues with that as well too. So just going with saying like, just buy the meat, just buy the vegetables, just buy the fruits. If you want to be really, nitpicky about it, then okay, you can spend the extra money. But there's a lot of people out there that are doing really good things that you can actually probably get it for more affordable in your area too if you look.
Absolutely. I try to think of things as layers and like what to layer on. I think from a behavioral standpoint for people too, that's less overwhelming and also kind of breaks up the all or nothing mindset you see a lot with nutrition of like, okay, I'm going 100% all clean food, all organic. And it's like when they can't stick with it and maybe they can't cook all of this fresh stuff that they just bought. And then they get discouraged
Mhm.
because they wasted all these expensive groceries and then they kind of throw in
Yeah.
the towel versus like, okay, just like learn to cook everything you have. And then if, your health kind of plateaus, has happened or happens periodically with my husband who has some chronic gut issues. I didn't really harp on like the macros of the meat because he liked protein and he was pretty much limited to mostly protein and vegetables, some starches. But then after some blood work and after some years of working on all of these things and optimizing all of these things, minimal improvements in cholesterol, and his doctor was like, hey, you actually really need to pay more attention to the macros in your meat as far as finding like lower fat cuts and things like that. And it did make a big difference. But yeah, that's not the first thing we're like ripping the steak out of his hands. Like there's other things we can do
Yeah.
first to make people like a little bit more bought in on the process.
Yeah, too. And we all have our own individual variances, how susceptible we are to those different markers as well, too. And, can you just pair your steak with some fiber and then it binds to the excess cholesterol or the excess fat and secretes it out through your bowel movement. So there's also different ways that we can just structure our meal to help us out as well, too. If you can't get rid of that, like I mean, here in Texas, it's all barbecue and briskets
Oh
and
yeah.
all those things. I have a client right now that I'm like, I'm not going to take your brisket away, but can we just eat a veggie with it, maybe? And so he's like, all right, I can do that. I'm like, I'll eat some green beans with my brisket. I'm like, yes, I love that.
Sold.
Let's do it.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. I know, because there's so many ways to like pair things that I think a lot of people, I think it's funny. I don't know if people come to you with this of like, get started with a client. They're like, don't you touch my popcorn. And I was like, I didn't say
Mhm.
anything about this food that you have a
Yeah.
deep rooted attachment to, but like there's probably a workaround. There's nothing like that's critical.
Yeah.
There's no, kale isn't
Yeah.
mandatory or whatever it is. It's pretty funny though.
Yeah, we have a lot of emotional connection to the foods that we eat, and I don't think people realize that until they start talking to about it. And I know, like when I first got into being into this field, I was so shocked of how many people would cry in their initial consultation because they think I'm taking something from them, or they start talking about something, they'll trigger an emotion because that food is attached to emotion. And I was like, whoa, there's a whole psychological component of this that I didn't even think about. And I was just like, me from someone that kind of freezes when people cry, I was like, what did I get myself into? But yeah, I know there's a lot of reasons why we choose the food that we are. So I always try to ask my patients and my clients, is there anything that's a non-negotiable for you? Like you have to have like that Snickers bar because your dad always gave you a Snickers bar growing up or something, what is that for
Yes.
you? Because yeah, there's a really, really strong emotions to foods.
There is, and I think that's funny to hear those or what associations people have, and because we're all so different as far as like how we grew up with food and who taught us how to eat and all of that type of
Hmm.
thing. I always think it's funny of like, well, someone will go to the movies and they're like, well, you have to get this when you go to the movies, or I do this on vacation, I have to do this. And like those associations never came to mind for me. And then it's like just exploring those things are like, can we try one without the other and see if we survive and see if we make it, see if that situation is still enjoyable. If we don't have 5 beers with it, maybe we try 3 beers and see if we can still get the same kind of like fun and memories with the people you're spending time with, not just all
Yeah.
about the food, all about the alcohol or whatever it is. But those things are endless. I find them endlessly entertaining of learning what people's like are non-negotiables or like must-haves or like their favorite combinations of things. Endlessly entertaining when I get to a peek into their life.
Yeah, and sometimes they don't even realize that they're either. They don't realize that they're doing that habit, and then you bring it to their
Mm-hmm.
attention, and they're like, "Oh, wait, that is why I do that." Oh, wow. And you're like, "Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
interesting."
It's yeah, endlessly fascinating. I was curious because I know the CrossFit side, and definitely when I was getting into CrossFit, I was heavy into the paleo
Hmm.
side of eating. I was wondering how, like, because I think you do work with like a fair bit of like sports nutrition. How do you kind of marry the two between functional medicine and sports nutrition? Because I feel like that's been a lot of educating when I'm talking to people about like, oh no, carbs are needed. It's like we don't want everything low carb, especially when you're because it's very different when you're talking to a very standard American, very sedentary, possibly probably not working out that much, certainly not trying to build muscle and be terribly athletic in the gym all the time, and especially when
Yeah.
you're talking to them about products like that are designed for athletes. They're like, oh, that's bad. That has sugar in it. But like the sugar helps you hydrate, all of those things. How do you kind of marry those two or educate people on the balance between those two kind of camps?
Yeah, I mean, fueling for an athlete is very, very different than the average population. And it's funny, a lot of people think that they're athletes and they need to feel like an athlete. And I'm like, you're not at that caliber. Let's just, you don't need that Rice Krispie treat before you go to the gym every single day. Do you understand that, right?
No.
But, it has to do a lot with these trends and things you see on social media, like the gummy bears, the Rice Krispie treats. Like, I have to do this. And it's like, that's pushing yourself into some other issues. So I think, yeah, just understanding what actually is your level of physical activity and how much demand you need for that. Because as an athlete, you do need a lot more carbs. You need more energy, but you just need more calories in general. So a lot of times when it comes to athletes, it's like they're force feeding themselves. They're eating when they don't want to eat. A lot of them just don't want to eat because you're feeling for performance. When you're in a high demanding activity, your body's digestive system shuts down, so it doesn't want to intake food. So they're constantly in this state and that they just don't want to eat, And so it's more so on the athlete side is you have to force feed them and get them to fuel and recover and hydrate. And on the other side of, the average population, it's getting them to balance their blood sugar and do, I like to say, like carbohydrate timing. Okay, let's time our carbohydrates around our physical activity. So can we make it so we support muscle recovery? Can we make sure that we are going into a workout fueled? There's a whole trend of like fasted cardio and work going to the gym, not eating anything because it does more fat burning and this and what this, and we know studies show that that's not actually true. And if you feel awful going to the gym in the morning because you are not fueled, you're not going to perform at the way that you should be performing. So now your performance is hindered, and then you go in there and you're starving and you're not feeling good, you don't get a good workout, then you go home and then you also don't feel good the rest of the day. So it's just finding that, are they actually feeling for performance? And then a lot of times too, you might feel for performance for a while. Like let's say you're training for a marathon, but then getting them to relearn how to feel after that, especially with athletes that are coming out of sport. They go from eating a very specific way, eating a lot of sugar, a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of fast digesting carbohydrates. And now they're just like the rest of us and they can't eat that way anymore. And so retraining them how to feel again. But there's no such thing as when it comes to food, there's a place for food for everyone. And there's the food that gives us fuel right away, and there's the food that gives us more slow digesting fuel. So, just really figuring out, okay, what's your overall day-to-day look like, how much physical activity that you're doing as well too, which I know you probably run in this as well, is a lot of people think they're very physically active, but then the rest of the day they're sedentary. Yes, you go to the gym 5 days a week, but that gym session's an hour, and the rest of the day you're sitting down. So realistically, you're only getting maybe 5,000 steps a day. And so I'm sorry, you're not an athlete. You're barely meeting the recommended daily allotment of movement here. So, but yeah, it's fun.
It is, yeah, there's definitely that. And I try to talk very careful with my words of like, oh, that's great activity. I love that activity versus like exercise. I kind of class is like something that I'm training. It's at a higher intensity than what I want my baseline activity level for. So it's like having horses. I'm very active, but like 16,000 steps a day is kind of a requirement. Some days it's not really exercise, but it's great to maintain that when I'm not exercising that day. But what would be your threshold? Granted, everybody's different, and some levels of activity, like I said, 16,000 steps is quite normal, should be well within my capabilities. For someone else, that would probably be classed as an exercise day. But where is the line kind of for you as far as fueling like an athlete for performance versus just a generally active, individual?
Yeah, when you're feeling for performance, it's going to be looking like you're doing multiple sessions a day and doing average of, 6 to 7 workouts per week on top of the rest of the activity that you're doing. So when we're talking about feeling for an athlete, you're going to have a morning training session, and then you're going to have a session training following after that. So it's really important for them to be able to make sure that they're getting fueled right after that first training session. So carbohydrates, proteins to replenish that glycogen, help decrease muscle breakdown, because they're going to be going into a training session the next day. So 6 to 7 is usually the minimum of their training sessions per week. And that's when we're looking at an athlete. Everyone else, even if you're working out 6 days a week, most likely with the daily job that you have and the physical activity, you're not going to be you're not at that athlete caliber. Very rarely do I get someone like you that's 16,000 steps a day, but they're also training 4 to 5 times a week. Okay, and then now we can start feeling like an athlete, because you are a very active individual, and so you have a lot of demands on your body. But yeah, I would usually say that's usually if you're doing 6 to 7 days of high intensity exercise or high output exercise. Okay, then we can start thinking about that as well too. And then on top of it as well, like I mentioned, there's some of like my patients that are training for a marathon. Okay, now we're going to start feeling like an athlete. We're going to start practicing how to properly fuel your body for that one day of performance. But then after that, we're going to go back to normal eating.
That's a great delineation. I never really thought about that in that sense of like, if you have, because you can get most of your nutritional needs in a day. But when you talk about a bodybuilder or like an athlete, like their next training session is probably coming fairly soon, and they need to be able to recover in a shorter amount of time than 24 hours, especially if we don't have any demands. Like I need to be able to squat X hundreds of pounds by Saturday or whatever it is, or the next day at the next session, I need to hit these reps and sets. Like it's not really, high stakes. Like it doesn't matter if I don't recover optimally for that, if I'm not really an athlete. But if I'm an athlete that has to perform in 12 hours again for another workout or training session, that just definitely puts a lot more pressure on your plate to be adequate in refueling versus someone who's just a very, very active person.
Yeah, definitely. And like you mentioned, like 16,000 steps is normal for you now. It's not it's no longer a strain on your body. Your body's accustomed to it. Just like I have people that work in construction or work in a physically active job. Well, that's no longer exercising for you. That's just your day to day. So we need to have exercise outside of that to continuously distress the body to get the body to change.
I think that's such a good point because, again, when I say that, or people are like, but I garden really hard all weekend. It's like, I love that. I love that. And they're like, should I still go for a walk when I'm already gardening? It's like, you could, but I would want it to be either like kind of like intervals or hills or something that's different, because gardening is so similar to that versus, like the exercise. And it's also so time efficient for people of like, that's where CrossFit can be helpful, but we need a little bit of both. I see people that only do CrossFit and sit all day and they don't walk. And so it's like, okay, let's increase your steps because I'm probably not going to increase your CrossFit. And then vice versa. We have the generally active person that gardens a lot and like, okay, that's great. You walk a lot, you get a lot of steps. Like, can we exercise so we can get more intensity and be super strong for gardening, so we can do it for many, many decades to come. But I think that balance is always a great education point for people.
Yeah, and I like to view strength training as something for longevity, for the basic individual. Even if they're doing something like, let's say they're doing construction, which is a very laborious job. Okay, you're going to be strength training to help prevent injuries, to help you still be able to do your job and to be able to do your job for many years. If it's someone that's gardening, okay, well, we're going to do strength training so you can lift that bag of soil up and not pull your back. That's what we're going to be doing strength training for, to stress the body, but also to protect the body as well. And yeah, you got to do outside of your normal daily activity as well to be able to get that result.
Well, I'd love to pivot into the fertility. I know I picked your brain on a lot of other things, but we were going to talk about the fertility side of nutrition, which I'm really excited to talk about. So we got a good framework of like, what's our basics? We've got protein, we've got fiber on our plate. Where should a couple start when it comes to optimizing their nutrition and lifestyle for better chances of conceiving?
Yeah, so I like to talk about the preconception window, which is 90 days before you try to conceive. So 90 days, we really get the opportunity to optimize ovulation, egg quality, but we also on the male side get to optimize sperm. So sperm is on about a 90-day cycle, so it's when they get a whole new batch of sperm. So we have 90 days that we can change some habits and get you some good healthy sperm, but then we also have that time to be able to optimize egg quality and hormone cycles and ovulation for women specifically. So what that's looking at is just, yeah, can we go ahead and actually fuel our body appropriately, but can we make sure we're getting all the vitamins and minerals that we need to be able to support conception and pregnancy as well too. And a lot of that is just doing basic lab work to get a good groundwork. Do we have any vitamin or mineral deficiencies off the get-go? Things, like iron, super important, vitamin D, vitamin B, all those things as well. And then from a male perspective, they have the opportunity to do like a sperm analysis and see if there's anything else going on with the structure of the sperm. We can prevent a lot of things like miscarriages, but then also complications within pregnancy. If we can properly fuel a woman and prime their body for pregnancy, we can actually start decreasing some of the negative things that you can see within the first trimester, like nausea and food aversions and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So increasing just like nutrient density of foods, guessing looking at lab work and pairing or customize supplementation plan if that's needed based on any food preferences or holes in their game that way. That's and 30 days or 30 days, 3 months would be kind of the minimum. Do you prefer longer or is that kind of like the absolute minimum?
Yeah, I would say that's the minimum. I mean, that's I think realistic for most people is to get their head around three months if we have the opportunity to do so. But realistically, any time before pregnancy is ideal. I mean, we all there's so many unplanned pregnancies and we can't all time it out perfectly. So if it's just you starting a month or a couple weeks before you conceive, it's still going to be beneficial for you. One of the biggest things is just getting on a good high quality multivitamin or prenatal. A lot of the prenatals on the market just don't have all of the recommended RDAs, which is very frustrating. They don't have the actual necessary nutrient levels for a woman to be in pregnancy. So you have to do a little bit of your research to find a good structured prenatal, but that's a great place to start. If you're even thinking about conceiving, okay, let's get a good high quality prenatal on board, because those mineral deficiencies can cause things like, ovulation issues, infertility issues, and those type of things. So doing that. Also stress lifestyle. Okay, can we make sure that we're regulating stress? Can we optimize sleep? They did some pretty cool studies that show that even 1 hour of sleep deprivation can decrease your chances of fertility like significantly for males and females. So sleep is a huge component of how many eggs are released every cycle. So just taking into account of those little things as well too.
Wow. Anything else that a woman might add, or both, I guess, men versus women? What else might you add to your plate if they had a fertility goal or conception goal on the horizon?
Yeah, definitely the main things I would talk about is obviously let's do prenatal. Let's make sure we get vitamin minerals. Let's focus on balancing our plate. So specifically for women and men, okay, how can we balance things like blood sugar? How can we make sure that we're supporting digestion? Blood sugar balancing is actually really important, making sure we're balancing our blood glucose and our insulin. And then also, can we make sure that we're having a good, healthy digestion? So normal bowel movement every single day. Our bowel movements are how we secrete a bunch of things out of our body that we don't need. And if we are backed up and or even if we're not just having healthy bowel movements, like uniform bowel movements, we're having constipation, we're having diarrhea, we're having bloating. There could be a lot of other things that are going on that could disrupt pregnancy and ovulation as well too. So we can tell a lot about our health from that. So all right, are we having a healthy balanced meal? Are we having the protein? Are we having the fiber? Are we having the healthy fats, and then on top of it, are we having good digestion? Are we sleeping well? What's our environmental toxin load looking like as well too? Things like heavy metals and plastics that we're exposed to. So just those basics is just kind of clean up. How is our sleep doing? How's our stress doing? Are we nourishing the body? Do we have a good supplement on top of that? And then can we try to just decrease our overall toxic load? Now, it's going to be impossible to eliminate all toxins that we're exposed to, but can we just reduce the burden on the body so the body can focus on detoxifying what it needs to detoxify and doesn't have all these excess things in it as well too? And a lot of times it's cleaning up the diet, taking out the processed food, adding in more fiber, but then also what are things in the home that we can start switching out for more, less chemical-based products and more natural-based products as well too, because we know that also affects fertility as well.
Absolutely. Now, if you have a woman that has either, I was about to say PCOS, that was just renamed polyendocrine metabolic ovarian syndrome. I think PMOS is the new name for it. But how would you layer on that side of things for those recommendations that you just started? What's extra? What would you emphasize on top of that?
Yeah, with PCOS, big physical activity component of that. We need to get muscle mass on the body, and we need to get that body healthy, lean body mass. So start weightlifting, start lifting some weights, getting some muscle mass on the body. Balancing blood sugar is a big one as well too. You're going to have insulin resistance going on. And then of course, how can we support secretion of those excess hormones that I was talking about? So things like more fiber in the diet because it binds to excess estrogen, excess androgens to help balance that as well too. But then also, how can we make sure the body's producing enough progesterone? So progesterone is that what we need to be able to actually conceive as well too. A lot of these women are chronically stressed. They're having other things going on that are suppressing their natural production of progesterone. So how can we get that increased? Now, there are specific foods that help balance androgen levels. There's things, like flax seeds. There's things like omega-3 fatty acids. So there's different nutraceuticals that I definitely have my patients add into their diet on a rotation that help balance things like insulin sensitivity, serum testosterone, and then just help improve menstrual regularity. So there's definitely those components as well.
What foods come to mind when it comes to supporting progesterone levels?
Ooh, progesterone levels. One of the ones I love is resistant starches. So things like sweet potatoes and those type of things. Because if you think about it, when we are getting ready to ovulate, what do? We want more comforting foods typically. And our body is very smart that it doesn't do that for no reason. So we know when we're getting ready to conceive and we're going ready to go through ovulation is that our body's need for calories can actually increase anywhere from 200 to 300 calories. So really leaning on those resistant starchy foods like potatoes and things like that, they're really great for helping support progesterone levels as well too.
See. And is there any, I don't know if this is in the ebook as well, but is there any additional support for women going through either an IUI cycle or IVF cycles?
Yeah, so definitely include that in the ebook as well too, is because there's also nutritional factors that can help IVF and IVI outcomes improve as well, which a lot of people I feel like they think if they're going that route that there's nothing else that they can do, but there's a lot of different nutritional things that you can add in as well to help support conception. So that's definitely a component up there as well.
Amazing. And how do you help women navigate like the supplement side of things? That can be kind of like the wild, wild west anyway, but then you have conception or pregnancy on top of that. And all the labels say like, don't take if breastfeeding or pregnant, because there's just usually less research done on those populations for ethical reasons, which you understand, but also like from someone who wants to, give themselves the best chance and utilize whatever products they can. How do you kind of navigate that?
Yeah, so when it comes to any supplementation, I always say make sure you go for a supplement that is third-party tested first off, because supplements are not FDA regulated. They're not regulated by any overseeing body. There was actually a consumer report that showed that I think it was upwards of 80% of supplements in department stores just didn't have what they said they had in them. Some of them didn't have any of the product that they said they had in it. So really going for a company that is third-party tested. Now, when I'm saying third-party tested, not just one that says third-party tested, it says what company is actually third-party testing them. Because again, there's no one regulating the label either. So these companies can put on the label that it's third-party tested, but they don't have something like the NF certified label, or with some of those reputable third-party companies. we don't actually know if it's third party tested or not. So really doing your investigation on that. And then if you're going to, spend your money to be able to get a supplement, you want to make sure that supplement is doing what it needs to do. Also things like protein powders and those other supplements, those can have high contaminants like heavy metals and things like that can actually, interfere with fertility. So that's the first thing. It's just making sure we can get one that is third party tested, that's high quality. If you do have the ability that you can go through that supplement and actually look at the supplement, and in my ebook, I'll put in which vitamins and minerals and the RDAs that we need to be able to have in those vitamins to be able to meet your needs. And if you have the time and you can go through them, and make sure, okay, this one has this amount of choline, this is how much I need for the choline, this has as much vitamin D as I need, then yes, by all means do that. Some people, they're just like, I don't have the time for that. So just make sure you're buying the high quality prenatal, and that's a good start. But in my ebook, I break it down which vitamins and minerals we need to look for, how do we look for a third party tested prenatal, and then I also include brands that I like that actually meet that criteria. Unfortunately, it's not a lot, but I help do that investigation for them.
That's awesome. That's super helpful. Do you ever I agree, I think food logging or food journaling, is there any app for food tracking that you particularly like for the nutrient values versus just the macros and calorie side of things, so people know how much actual vitamins and minerals they're getting?
I'm pretty true to chronometer or chronometer, however you want to. Yeah.
I was hoping.
Yeah, I haven't found a better one out there. If someone does, awesome, they're more than happy to share it with me. But yes, that one, it's free, first of all, which is a huge selling point. But it gives you a breakdown of all the vitamins and minerals, and then the macronutrients as well too, that you don't have to pay extra for. I know like things like MyFitnessPal have updated it. Now you have to pay extra to be able to get those things. But Chronometer is the one that I always go for. It's the easiest, I think, to report because it also does memory recall. So it makes it really easy to go back on foods that you like. I build recipes in mine. So if there's a common recipe that I like, I'll build the recipe in it so I can do how much servings of this. It really just takes a lot of the complications out of food logging out of it. But then you get a report every single day. With my patients, it actually integrates into my EMR system as well too. So I can actually see everything that they put into their chronometer right then and there, and I can see the breakdown. I say, okay, we don't get any B6. Let's make sure we're getting some B6. Or we don't get hardly any iron in our diet. Okay, let's add in some more iron foods. So that's my go-to. And like I said, it's free. So, I mean, I can't argue with that.
Nope. Same. I'm a big fan of it. It's MyFitnessPal, I think it's like almost $50 a month.
Yeah.
It was a lot, and even the gold or upgraded version of Chronometer, I don't know how you say it either. Nobody knows. I've been using it for years, and I'm like, I don't know. Guess whichever one you want to say. But it's like $50 for the entire year, and it gives you so much information. And I was introduced to it in grad school. I was like, if we use this for grad school for designing like therapeutic diets, like I think this is pretty darn helpful, and it takes the emphasis off of calories, macros. That's super helpful as well. But also, like, I think people get intrigued of like, how much nutrition can I get from my diet, and making that a game that way instead of just focusing on it or using it as a tool for restriction. It's kind of fun to flip the script.
Well, yeah, and I always tell people too, it's not about necessarily like staying within your macros. It's just understanding what portion size are as well too. I mean, that's the biggest thing is you're not going to understand if you're getting enough protein in, if you're getting enough fat in, if you're getting enough fiber, unless you measure it. And I always tell people, I'm like, use a scale, use a food scale. Don't use measuring cups. Don't use all those things. Like, use a food scale, and you'll actually see how much 6 ounces of chicken is, or how much. Because if you're telling me that and I have my patients do this as well too. Sometimes if I think that they're not reporting accurately, I'll have them take a picture of their food while they're uploading it. And I can say, I know that's only 3 ounces of chicken that I see there. It's not the 6 ounces that you think you are. So you're under consuming this, or you're over consuming this. And I know everyone knows when they measure out actually a true serving of peanut butter, it breaks your heart because you're like,
absolutely breaks your heart. But I'm like, do it.
Yeah, but it's so eye-opening, and it's not about depriving yourself or restriction. It's just about bringing awareness, how to again go back to balancing a healthy plate and making sure that we are doing our due diligence to meet our needs.
Absolutely. I don't know why it took me so many years to like think of it like this, but like trying to get my dog to like be a healthy weight, and we would do anything for our pets or other people. I always think of it as like a scoop for him, and I would be religious with him. I'm like, you're looking a little too heavy, buddy. I'm sorry. I'm
Yep.
going to cut you back. I'm going to make sure, like you get your scoop and not too much extra. And I was like, why don't I do this for me? Like, I should do this for me and make sure that, like, I get enough of my, breakfast mixture that it gets me
Yeah.
to my lunch. And I don't need to reach for a snack when I really don't have time to, like, stop and grab something else. Because a meal will work so much better than most snack options that you can put together. And it's just funny how, yeah, if you can change how
Yeah.
you think about something, you're like, oh, this is empowerment. This isn't restriction anymore. I'm aware. I'm informed. I can make better choices now.
Yeah, and it's like, oh, why am I starving at the end of the day? Well, you only ate 100 calories for breakfast. Did you actually measure it out? That's probably why you're starving at the end of the day. Or,
Mhm.
but yeah, going back to, I mean, just having a full meal, it's gonna help you so much longer to be able to sustain hunger, appetite, and most of us are looking for, decrease hunger, increase appetite, and it's like if we're actually measuring out our food and balancing our plate, that's going to help so much. So it's just one of those simple things that we can just do. It doesn't even matter what the quantity of the food is. If we can just measure it out and balance our plate, it's going to help us out a lot.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I feel like people, especially if my clients are listening to this, they'll think I paid you to say all of this. So, like, use a scale, track your food with chronometer. Like,
Yeah,
it's
you
just,
get
yeah, this was not a paid advertisement for those strategies, but it is. It's so true. It's so true. What else comes to mind? I don't know if anything in particular does, as far as not necessarily myth busting, but is there anything that you would take off someone's, like, mental load of when it comes to fertility? Like, this actually, I guess, like the other health general example I would think of as, like, cold plunges or something. It might help you like 2%, but, like, again, if you're not doing the basics, it's not going to really do much. Is there anything in the fertility world that, women could kind of, leave for later, or maybe not worry about right away and focus on the basics that are really going to help them?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything that causes too much stress on you is something that we need to figure out, is it really something that's good for you as well? Because I think especially there's so much weight on women with fertility, and there's so much blame that women place on themselves if they can't get pregnant. I totally get that, but there's things that's like you're missing the basics because you're so stressed on, let's say, the temperature of your food. I've had,
Oh,
patients
wow.
that have been like, yeah, where I can't eat a certain temperature of my food because that can possibly, there's something that has to do with it in Chinese medicine. I don't know 100% about
Wow.
it, but like the temperature of your water, it can't be too cold, it can't be too hot, it has to be this because it's going to throw off the pH, things like that, to the point where they're stressing themselves out so much. Well, if you're stressing yourself out about this so much, well, you're also not going to conceive as well too, because your body doesn't want to conceive in a stressed state. But then on top of it, you also just need to talk to your partner and get your partner on board as well. We know that, 20 to 30% of infertility is from the male as well. So if you're doing all these things and you're doing what you feel like is 100%, well, your partner should probably be doing 100% as well too, and doing their part, because it might not be on you. So yeah, I usually just say, if we're doing things that are causing too much stress on the body, okay, like let's say weighing and measuring out your food is causing way too much stress, and it's just, then all right, we're doing ourselves a disservice now. Can we just try to eat and just try to nourish our body and just feel good? Okay, and let's just decrease the stress, because stress is a huge component of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. What do you feel like is the most overlooked habit for most people? Like, that could be lifestyle, that could be sleep. What is probably the unsung hero as far as, like, other habits that people should be conscious of about adding in?
Oh my gosh, I can't say more about stress, honestly. Especially for women. We are naturally more sympathetic creatures. Like, we are ruminators. We think about things, we plan things. We also try to do everything as well too. We try to work, we try to take care of the house, we try to do X, Y, Z. And then on top of it, we're the ones that gravitate towards like high intensity exercise as well. We want to hit like a hit workout. We want to go on a strenuous run. We want to do everything. And so it's just, we have to just not overlook stress, because like I mentioned, if our body's stressed, it's not going to want to conceive. It's not going to want to do a lot of things, because it says, hey, we can't bring up any kind of baby into this environment. We can't support life. And so if we can just decrease stress, and I mean, I'm speaking to myself when I say this as well too. Like, I'm someone that more is better, more is better, more. What can I
Right.
do more versus like, actually, what can you take out? What can you take off your load? What can we this week, instead of do what can we do? What can we do less of this week? And that's really hard. It's hard for women, especially when it comes to fertility, is women really want to do the best for themselves. They want to do the best for their babies. They're very passionate about it. And they, like I said, they put a lot of weight on themselves, but a lot of time is, how can we take a little bit of that weight off of you?
That's that makes me think of another piece of advice. I can't remember who I heard it from. Maybe it was another podcast, but instead of saying like, everybody thinks about, going into a new week, like, what am I going to do this week? What habits? What are we going to say no to this week? I think is also another really good prompt, because it's so
Yeah.
easy to say like, yes, I can do that. Yes, I can do that. It's like, well, I have to make other time to do the new yes things. So what am I going to say no to make time for that? I thought that was a really interesting way to think about it, and less stressful, because I think the same thing of like, oh, I can do that. I can do that. And my husband's like, when are you going to do that? And he just knows that like there's your time is already full. Most people don't come to us and be
Yeah.
like, Allie, I have 5 hours to work on my health and nutrition. What would you have me do? Nobody has 5 hours to spare every day. But yeah, if we can say no to a couple more things, that makes sense.
Well, and sometimes that means working with someone that's expert in their field to help offload those things for you
100%.
so you don't have to think about these things, and you don't have to feel like you're missing something as well too. It's always nice to have a fresh set of eyes on what you're going through, and maybe someone that can bring something to your attention that you didn't really think of as well too. I mean, we all need a coach, even at the best, we all need a coach. We all need someone to take a look at things. So even if you feel like, no, I got everything under control, it doesn't hurt to have someone else take a look as well.
Absolutely. And there's always so many nuances. And I see this over and over again with clients of like, I'm doing all these wonderful things, these things that are right or the best, and I'm still not seeing the result. And it turns out they just usually have like a harder lifestyle than the most people making those recommendations. So I do encourage people to take that into consideration, even with the recommendations that we've talked about today. I know working with like night shifters and like physicians particularly, or people, anybody who has a fairly intense job, some of these recommendations are harder fit.
Yeah.
So that's where,
Yeah.
working with somebody one-on-one, where it's like, oh yeah, that is a tough schedule. That is a tough set of circumstances. Like, let's just look for the next best step or the next, 10% improvement that's within your grasp, and instead of reaching for like the ideal scenario right out of the gate.
Yeah, and I get it all the time. I'm doing everything right. Then they're having all these issues as well too. So it's like, well, there's clearly something else going on. There's something not going right. So what can we do to help get you? You are doing, but that's also the thing too, is also acknowledging how much effort you are doing. You are doing so many great things for yourself, but can we change this little thing, or can we do that, or can we do less? Can we say no? Those type of things as well too. And maybe you didn't have that brought to your attention because you haven't thought about that, and that's always what working with someone else helps with.
Absolutely. They have a fresh set of eyes for it. Well, perfect. I do want to respect your time. The last couple of questions that I have, this has been a really fun one to ask people because I always get different answers than I expect. But in our culture that makes being very unhealthy, very normal, very common, what would you normalize? And it could be a society thing, it could be a health thing, it could be a kind of mentality, but what would you normalize to help our whole population get healthier? On that population level, what would you like to normalize?
I would love to normalize eating as a family and eating home cooked
Good
meals
one.
more. So, yeah, I would love to
Good
be, I
one.
mean, that's like my dream thing, is be able to have every family be able to sit down and have a dinner together. I think that would be a beautiful thing, having more home cooked meals.
That's amazing. That's so beautiful. And we haven't had that one yet, so that's perfect. Amazing. Awesome, Tiffany. Well, where can people find you? Do you work in a clinical setting, and then also you have private clients, I think. You also do strength training. Tell people about how they can reach out and work with you.
Yeah, so I work in a couple different clinics actually. So I have different modalities, but I do take on my own personal clients as well too. And you can find me at drtiffanygarcia.com, and then also on Instagram at Dr. Tiffany Garcia, on YouTube as well too. All the major platforms there. But that's how you can get in touch with me if you want to work with me directly, or if you want to work in one of my clinics. My clinics specialize in different types of medical nutritional therapy, so it just depends on the modality that you're looking for. But yeah, work with a lot of different backgrounds.
Great. And then you have a new ebook, Preconception Guidelines, a comprehensive guide to help optimize male and female fertility and support a healthy pregnancy. Is that out right
Yeah,
now?
it's gonna be coming out at the end of the month, so I'm very
Awesome.
excited for that. Yeah.
Wonderful. So people should subscribe to your newsletters and follow you on Instagram and all the things so they can get that once that goes live. Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Tiffany Garcia, so much for spending time with us. And hopefully maybe we can book another time to chat, because I'm sure we could find a host of topics to keep talking about. All right. Thank you so much for listening. Before you go, please consider helping the show grow. You can subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can like this video. You can share it with a friend. You can follow us on Spotify. Maybe leave us a 5-star review. That would be endlessly helpful. If you want to follow us on social media, that would be great as well. If you want a little bit more nutrition information, I would highly recommend going to parksidenutrition.com/subscribe. There you can subscribe to the Free Shit Friday email list, and I will deliver free shit to you every single Friday. It's usually a YouTube video, new podcast, new training, new tip, tool, PDF download, a new recipe, at least three of those things. That way you can start helping to improve your health today. Every single week on a Friday, I send you a little bit of free information. If you are interested in more help, we have the membership program, which is Become a Healthier You program. It's a whole $30 a month, and it makes nutrition help affordable. If you have any other questions or topics that you want covered on this podcast, please let me know. You can email me, Allie, at parksidenutrition.com. Otherwise, I will see you in the next episode.